ESPN senior NFL insider KC Joyner will join me right now on the Boardwalk Honda hotline. And KC, I think it's all right to say this run has been magical for Foles. He's been unbelievable. But in a lot of these games, he's just been average but clutch. Yesterday, he was average, and the clutch play just wasn't there.
Yeah, it is fair to say that, because there have been times, even last year, there were occasions where the team won and he didn't play quite as well, and it was okay. You kind of put that into the Foles magic category, but if you take the good of what he can do when he's playing at his best, you got to take the bad of what he's doing when he's playing at his worst. And yesterday, like you just mentioned, there were plays left on the table, and there was a room for a lot better performance than what we saw.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the play that really turned the game around, they're up 14-0. He's shooting for Ertz down the sideline, who has a step on his man, and Lattimore comes up with a big interception, but that's just a poorly thrown ball.
It's a poorly thrown ball, and honestly, I mean, Ertz is great. Do I really want the matchup if I'm Doug Peterson, if I'm the Eagles offense? Do you want Ertz against Lattimore? I'm not sure I want him trying to win that matchup. I'm looking to say, okay, if you're going to take your best guy and take him out, fine, I'm going to have to go elsewhere. I just don't know that I want to put a 50-50 ball up there, because I don't think that's 50-50 with Lattimore. I think if you throw that up there, it's 75-25 Lattimore.
The fake punt there, all right, couple schools of thought. Some people are saying they should have accepted the penalty. I've never really seen that happen. I don't know how many times you've seen a coach accept the penalty in their own end and give you a third down again when it's going to be a fourth down. So when that punt happened, number one, did you sense a fake? And number two, would you have accepted the penalty and give them third down again?
I'll put it this way. Would I have sensed a fake? Not necessarily, but if you're Peterson, you use trick plays when the other team's not looking for them, and the old Paul Brown idea of you always use your trick plays first. If I'm him, I would have at least been expecting that, and make sure I guess the way to put it is, if you do not decline that penalty, it's 4th and 1, make sure they're going to punt. I mean, put them up there and say, we're going to make sure we're going to put them in the box. We're going to make sure we take that option away from you. But it didn't look like they did that. It looked like they thought, all right, they're going to punt. We're not even going to play for the fake. You've got to be thinking about it at least, because this is Sean Payton you're talking about, a very aggressive coach. You need to put his hat on when you're making that call.
A lot of other areas of this game that we can kind of look at, and that long drive, Drew Brees, they have this long drive, and they really, that kind of changed the game there. That gives them the lead, and a lot of people saying, hey, the Eagles should have sent more pressure. They should have blitzed. We talked about it on Friday. That's just not what they do. And part of it, Casey, is they don't have the personnel to blitz. I mean, so how did you look at Jim Schwartz and the way he called that game on Sunday?
Oh, we did talk about it when you looked at Brees' stats over the last quarter of the season when he was blitzed. He had a terrible yards per attempt total. But how do you can't blitz when you're I read a stat, I believe the Eagles this year played 10 different cornerbacks. And obviously that's what if you're on your 10th cornerback, you can't blitz. And the Eagles only blitzed 7.1% of the time on vertical passes in yesterday's game, and they didn't blitz that much more overall. They only blitzed on a 7.5% of passes overall. So I think they said we need to have our corners sit back. But if you do that, hey, to do as well as they did without blitzing is a solid sign, because they still got pass rush pressure 22% of the time. It's not a terrible number if you're never going to blitz. So, I mean, they did okay with it, but there's just personnel limitations. And I can't really hold that too much against Schwartz, because he did the best he could with what he had to work with.
Yeah, I mean, if I told you, Casey, on Friday, they're going to give up 20 points in the Dome, they probably win that game, right?
I'm thinking they're going to win that game. Because the Saints are a really good defense, but the way the Eagles' offense had been playing for the most part, if you said, do you think you could put up 21? Yeah, I'm thinking they could put up at least 21 in that scenario. I like my chances to put it that way. I thought I had better than 50-50 chances. I mean, you can hold the Saints that low. And by the way the Saints have been playing, it shouldn't have been an idea that you couldn't hold that offense. You slowed that offense down to less than 24 points, because they've been kind of limited of late. So Peterson should have walked into that game thinking this was a possibility.
The Brandon Brooks, the right guard. I know you study offensive lines and look at a lot there. I don't know that you looked at it that closely, but when he went out, that seemed to really change things for the Eagles' offense.
It did, and I think that they did. I think that a lot of times with the quarterback, especially if any quarterback or running back, anybody who's leaning on their blocking, if they start to lose any faith in those blockers, it changes the way that they play their game. A running back will take a play that should go, say, in the 6-hole and suddenly bounce it to the outside or bounce it back inside because he doesn't think it's going to be well blocked at the hole. Same thing with quarterbacks. If they think that even if you put somebody, a backup in there who can play just as well, if they think that blocking is going to be good, it gets in their head, and I got a little bit of that sense from Foles. He didn't think it was going to be quite as good to block him.
They also lost Fletcher Cox, and what did that do to the defense there? Because that seemed to be an issue as well.
It did, and I mean they only got pass rush pressure yesterday on 19. They got pass rush pressure on just over 20% of passes yesterday. It's not a good enough number. They just you got to be, and a lot of that comes from up the gut pressure. And if you know you're not going to be getting blitzing from the outside, it just limits. Let's put it this way: when the Saints see Fletcher Cox go out, it says to them, even though the Eagles still have a quality set of pass rushers, now they know we can start shifting our protections toward the outside. We think our front, the middle of our line can hold up effectively without him in there. And I think it just changes what you can do on defense because now you're not blitzing and you're not going to get up the gut pressure. Now the only way you're going to get pressure is by edge rushers, and it really makes it a lot easier for Sean Payton to call plays.
Yeah, and it seemed like, the Eagles, obviously, they had injuries in the secondary all year, but then even yesterday they had injuries in the secondary that they were dealing with. I mean, when you're depending on Douglas and Maddox and they go out of the game and you're thinking, oh, my God, Josh Hawkins, I never even heard of the guy. I mean, so when you're up against Drew Brees in that kind of situation, to give up 20, I think is you got to shake the guy's hand, not rip him.
Yeah, and the thing is the Saints did what they needed to do to get people up. I thought it was something interesting. I'm looking at some of the metrics on our stats and information website for ESPN. Drew Brees is 8 of 13 in vertical passes yesterday. Passes thrown 11 or more yards downfield when he faces either nickel or dime coverage. So in other words, when they're putting enough guys out there to say, Eagles, you're going to have to bring in some of we're going to go deep into your defensive back setup. And even though he throws that many passes and you're thinking, okay, they're going nickel or dime coverage, that usually you'd think, okay, they're going to take away the top receiver and throw to somebody else. 7 of those 13 vertical targets went to Michael Thomas and 5 went to Ted Ginn. They basically said, we're going to put our guys out here. We're going to make you go nickel or dime, and then we're still going to go to our top guy because we think we can get him lined up against somebody we think he can beat. And they did for the most part, 13.5 yards per attempt on vertical passes. That's a really good number. So, again, that the Saints did a good job of making sure they exploited that weakness.
Yeah, and, I mean, it looked like the Saints were a team. Remember, they had the bye, and then they didn't really play their starters in the final week of the season. So it looked like a team that got off to that they were a little rusty and got off to a slow start. And the Eagles did take advantage. They went up 14-0. But why were they not able to get any more points on the board?
It has to do a lot with the lack of vertical passing because in the first quarter, Foles is 3 of 4 on vertical passes for 19.8 yards per attempt. That is just an incredible number. You're still only throwing 4 passes, but when you get nearly 20 yards per attempt, that's a huge number. The rest of the game, he's 2 of 9 on vertical passes, 3.7 yards per attempt. And a lot of it was they started blitzing too because they blitzed on vertical passes it was 46.7% of the time the Saints blitzed on vertical passes. They basically said once the vertical passing started to work, they said, we're going to come after you. We're going to start blitzing. And again, losing, having a backup guard in there, I think that added to the pressure, and they just kept blitzing and saying, Foles, we're not going to give you a clean pocket. We're going to make you think you're under pressure. If nothing else, we're just going to make sure we're in your face because they realized after one quarter, if we don't get after you, you're going to tear us up.
Zach Ertz, why was he not able to get involved in either game? The last game, they really bracketed him and took him out. So that wasn't the case yesterday. Why was Ertz not a big factor?
I think part of it is we talked about earlier that they put Lattimore on him for that play. And I think Saints weren't hesitant to say we're going to use our top personnel to stop you. You're the top threat because out of the 13 vertical passes that Nick Foles throws, 5 of them go to Ertz. Almost over a third of your vertical passing goes to him, only for 33. So I think they said we're going to take. Usually, most of the time when you're facing an offense, there's only a certain number of things that a tight end can do in the vertical passing game. I think the Eagles send more of the vertical passing game through the tight end. And I think the Saints just said we're going to make sure we make it very difficult for you to get open vertically. The bad thing is, You're 2 of 5 on vertical passes to Ertz. You're only 1 of 3 to Jeffrey, and that's just not enough. I'd rather see you Alshon Jeffrey be getting 5 vertical targets than Ertz, and 2 into Golden Tate. And Golden Tate's just not a vertical receiver either. I'd rather have funded more of the vertical offense through Jeffrey, but again, I think they decided to go Ertz, and it hurt him.
Yeah, and I guess the one area where you can question the Eagles and Schwartz and that defense, I don't know how they change this or what they do to stop it, but the Saints were 4 of 5 on 3rd and 10 or longer yesterday. All other teams, this is from Hembo, went 2 for 23 in those chances this weekend. So how did the Eagles stop the Saints on 3rd and 10 or longer? They just weren't unable to get that stop. And that wasn't the only game that happened. They did have other games where that was a problem for them.
I don't want to second guess the defensive play calling in a sense because holding the Saints to 20 points is pretty good. But if you're only going to blitz, I think it was like one time of vertical passes you can blitz. If you're going to do that and the Saints know you're not going to blitz, you're making it a little too easy for them. I think they needed to say at some point, let's go ahead and send an occasional blitz or to something along those lines. Send somebody up there to get after him, because if we don't, this is just not going to go very well. So I think they needed to just add some more in there because you can't get so predictable to say we don't trust our secondary so much. We're not going to blitz. You got to at least make Brees think they're going to blitz.
KC Joyner, ESPN.com, senior NFL insider here on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. We break it down with him every Monday and Friday. Let's take a look at that last series there. Jeffrey misses the throw, obviously an easy pitch and catch. He catches it. But would you have waited for the 2-minute warning? What's the thinking there of why they're rushing to get that play off?
I think I don't know. They had enough time. They had plenty. In fact, you want to run some time down. You want to take that clock down so you score, and you don't leave Brees with very much time. They've got a good kicker, and you're not going to be up by much if you score, so you want to leave him with as little time as possible. And the thing is when they got up there for that little play that Jeffrey drops and gets intercepted, it seems like they were rushing. If you're getting up there and it's just because you're running pace and you think we can get a better play we can get a better play that way, I get it. But they seemed rushed. And at that point, if you're Foles and people talk about ice water in his veins, at that point, if you're rushed, let it go. Just go to the 2-minute warning and get there. But it seemed like he was rushed. It seemed like the receivers were rushed. And if you're rushed at that point and you're not getting a competitive advantage because of your running pace and the defense isn't ready for it, then don't do that and just take your time out. So it's I didn't agree with it from a coaching perspective, but also from Foles' perspective. I think you should just shut that play down so we're going to 2 minutes.
All right. Eagles lose. Now they have questions. Real quick, Foles, you keep them. What do? You give them, you franchise them. How do they handle that if they're Howie Roseman?
I'm still the old Raiders mindset. I talked about this many times over the years. That the old 60s and 70s Raiders, when they had top quarterback, a top veteran backup, and a rookie quarterback to develop. That's the way you do it. They did it with Monica and Blanda and Stabler back in the day. That's like the best of all worlds. I still think that they would be well suited to have a strong backup quarterback because Wentz hasn't proven that he's a 16-game guy, even at injuries back in college. But, I don't know that they'll do that. But to me, I want to keep these two quarterbacks and keep this setup because that way you still have Super Bowl windows. But if you lose Foles and put somebody a step down from him, this team isn't even making the playoffs, much less almost getting the conference championship.
That's true, but that's a lot of money.
Hey, it's worth it sometimes. Sometimes it's only money poorly spent if you don't get the right thing in return. And if you get a good quarterback to fill in when Wentz goes down, then hey, it's worth it. It's money well spent if you can get the right value out of it.
All right, let's take a look at some of the things that happened over the weekend. Let's go back to Saturday, that first game. What happened to Indianapolis? I mean, a lot of people thought they were the hottest team. They were coming in, and the Chiefs had not played well at home in the past. They had lost 6 straight, but they dominated from jump street. They got up early, and unlike the Eagles, they never turned back.
They didn't, and you look at the Chiefs' defense at home. We start looking at a lot of their different metrics, the way they play at home versus on the road. It is a much different team. I also think the Colts are a turf team. I don't think they respond so well to – I didn't think they responded well to the cold weather. I think they responded well to the turf itself. And I also thought that they tried to slow the game down. I said going into that contest, they need to turn this into a shootout game and try and make it 34-31. I think they tried to slow things down. That was a mistake. You need to try and go into a shootout game in that contest. And when they didn't, it hurt them and it cost them.
Yeah, Ultimately, though, we were questioning Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes making his debut. They didn't disappoint for at least the first week. Now they'll get a home game against the Patriots. More on that game later. Let's go to the Rams and Dallas. The Rams opened up that lead, and Dallas just couldn't get back. But Dallas, what were some of the warts of them that showed in that game Saturday night?
No pass rush. I know that the Rams were running the ball exceptionally well, and mind you, I still think, the Cowboys front seven graded out fairly well in my run defense metrics this year, but they never were as dominant there as they were against the passing game. And I think that it passed coverage. And I think the Rams said, we can probably block very well because the Cowboys' pass rushing metrics are terrible in the last quarter of the season, bottom quarter of the league. In fact, they were 29th in pass pressure rate in the last quarter of the season. So that showed up in the playoff game. But I think the Rams just said, we're going to run the ball because we think we can get it going because we've got this two-headed backfield here. But I also think that they didn't want to test that Dallas secondary. And they were able to take away Dallas's greatest strength. We're not going to test your secondary very often. When we do, we're going to get a lot of good pass blocking in there. And it kind of exposed the Cowboys' weakness because their front seven is not as good as their secondary.
And offensively for Dallas, you look at the game that Zeke Elliott had, not great. Cooper had the touchdown. Where do you see that offense? What do they need to take another step? Because it was obvious that their offense was an issue for them in some big games.
Yeah, it was. They got good pass blocking, but I look at that and it's still an Amari Cooper offense. And Amari Cooper's great, but can you imagine if that offense had, Zach Ertz, Travis Kelce? Can you imagine if they had a player like that? Those guys are hard to find, but if you gave them an alternate target, somebody else who could keep the middle of the field threatened, and if you could do something along those lines, they just don't have enough playmakers offense. So they've got the triplets. We've got the quarterback, we've got the running back, we've got the top wide receiver, but you need a Jay Novacek to go back in the day for the Cowboys. You need an Alvin Harper. You need some other people to threaten the defense because right now you just don't have quite enough weapons. You look at the Rams. The Rams are just chock full of weapons in a way that the Cowboys aren't, and that makes the Cowboys, it limits what they can do to win games.
Were you surprised that the Rams were able to run the ball so much?
The Rams' run blocking has been exceptionally strong this year, and I think that they, at a time for a portion of the season, decided that they wanted to be more of a vertical passing team. Especially, actually, also because their secondary, once they lost Talib, and their secondary was nowhere near as good without him, they kind of had to get into those sorts of games. So they would prefer to be this type of offense if they can, where they could just pound the ball and then go vertical when they want to. And with Talib out there for most of the contest, they've been able to do that of late and do that in that contest. So I think that they still want to be able to be the power run and go vertical team. That it's like their go-to mode if they can get there. And on Saturday they could.
We will break these games down more. Let's go to the Chargers and Patriots. We'll break down the NFC and AFC championship game on Friday's show. But, the Chargers, to me, and I think you tweeted this out, they look like a team that had been, on the road for weeks and had to play the 10 o'clock game multiple weeks. It just looked like everything caught up to them.
It did. I thought that they would have enough energy to give them another week's worth of energy like they did last week. But no, because they're playing consecutive 10 o'clock in the morning games for them. I wish the league would have moved them to the 4 o'clock window. I think it would have made for at least the Chargers wouldn't have seemed as much of a tired team. I don't know why they went back home either. They beat Baltimore and then they fly back home and then they come back to the East Coast. Why don't you just stay in the East Coast and stay in that time frame? Not sure why they didn't try and do that. But also, they look like they were still using the same game plan they did against Baltimore. It's like, guys, that worked against Baltimore given what they were, but you can't use that 7 defensive back setup against you can't use big nickel against the Patriots because they'll just start power running the ball like they did, and they'll start doing a lot of things that aren't going to do very well for you. So Chargers need to be thinking with a different game plan instead of trying to replicate.
And Belichick mentioned it. He's like, that's what they did last time against us.
Yeah, exactly. And they just need, and I think he knew, and that's where if you're Phillip Rivers, you got to think we got outcoached again. And mind you, Anthony Lynn does a great job. He's a very good coach, but it's like you got outplay called. You didn't just get outcoached because sometimes like a Mike Tomlin team would get outcoached because Mike Tomlin just makes mistakes and does things he shouldn't do. But this is the Anthony Lynn team. It's like they've been really good. I couldn't understand why they were going with the same game plan early on and the Patriots were beating it and then they kept going to it. And you're like, want to go Gus Bradley? Why are you still doing this? Did you not have plan B? And it didn't look like they did. They like so this is what we're going to do, and if this doesn't work, too bad. Well, that thing, it didn't work.
KC Joyner, before we let you run, a couple things. Number one, if you're an executive that needs a quarterback, are you paying Nick Foles top dollar to be your quarterback?
Only if I think I've got a coach as good as Peterson who can get a lot out of him. And plus, I'm still going to try and remember that there are these bad games. He does have these, he can be great, but I need to know that I've got a coach who's going to be able to game plan around his losses. And I don't think of him as a franchise quarterback. As a franchise quarterback is a guy I know I can put out there for 16 games. I'm going to get really good performance for 12, 13, 14 of those games. Him, I'm putting out there for 16 games. 10, I might get that many good games, and then 6 if I'm going to get what we got yesterday or what we get when he has a bad game. Is that good enough? Because you might only win 8 of the 10 where he plays well, and if maybe you don't even win that many. Maybe win 7 out of the 10, and then you got to get a lot of wins in the rest of the game. So no, I'm thinking he's a good quarterback, but I'm not. I don't want to break the bank to get this guy.
What if you're Howie Roseman and someone offers you, Adam Schefter said on his Adam Schefter podcast, 3 first-round picks would be the starting point. If you're Howie Roseman, do you have to at least think about that?
You're talking for Wentz?
Yeah.
Yeah. If somebody offered, I don't know. I always think of saying that Ernie Accorsi, a famous general manager in the league for many, many years, very successful. He always said that there's no price that's too high to pay for a franchise quarterback. So if you've got a true franchise quarterback, I'm not talking to Matthew Stafford, I'm not talking to Matt Ryan, I'm talking Rodgers, Brady, somebody of that nature, Peyton Manning. If you've got somebody of that caliber, you do everything you can to keep them and you never give them up. I don't know that Wentz is that guy yet. I don't know that he is a true franchise quarterback. But if the Eagles have an inkling that he is, I wouldn't trade him for 5 first-round draft picks, because if you've got that franchise quarterback, it's very hard to get them back.
Well, your fallback is, though, you stick with Wentz and you're adding all these picks.
You could have that fallback, but again, you have to ask the question. If you had Peyton Manning in his prime, you have 25, 26-year-old Peyton Manning in his prime. Is there anything in the league that you give up to drop him? If you have Tom Brady in his prime, do you even think about trading him? Doesn't matter what they trade. No, you can give me your whole draft. I don't want to trade. You can give me 3 straight whole drafts.
Right.
I don't care. I've got this franchise quarterback. So no, if you know they're a franchise quarterback, question is Wentz is true franchise quarterback. If he is, don't make the trade. If you have an inkling that he might not be, then maybe make the trade.
KC Joyner, ESPN.com, senior NFL insider, and also covers the WWE for ESPN. And some interesting news there. You got a chance to sit down with Cody Rhodes, and I don't know, can we be seeing the new Monday Night Wars soon?
It's a possibility. I think they're a ways off from that. I went to their Double or Nothing event. It's called All Elite Wrestling. It's being the Khan family, Shad Khan and Tony Khan. Tony is Shad as the owner of the Jaguars and Fulham FC. They're the ones who are actually they own the company, and Tony is the director of analytics for the Jaguars. He's the general manager of Fulham FC, and now he's in an executive role for this company as well. And yeah, I don't know that they're going to make a run at WB quite yet, but they're making a run at their talent. And the conversation I just had with Cody talked about how he got in there, how he and Tony got connected, how they signed Chris Jericho. I mean, that's kind of number of other elements. It's an article that'll probably be posted tomorrow on ESPN.com. One of their top talents and the number.
Oh, it looks like we're losing you there, Casey. You there?
I'm here.
All right. Yes, you mentioned. I heard you say Jericho, and then you kind of faded away.
Yep, they got Chris Jericho, and he's the top talent that they've signed. They're going to make inroads, I guess, after talent like that. They want a lot of up-and-coming talents. Cody was telling me today they're trying to aim for up-and-coming talents, trying to get Cat. But could this eventually be a Monday Night War if they get the right kind of TV deal and such? They'll at least be competitive, and they're going to be a very different organization. It can be run in a very different way than the WWE. It can be very fan-centric and very wins and losses matter, things that a lot of fans have been clamoring for. I think they're going to do everything that fans are clamoring for. They're going to aim to do and say, this is how we differentiate ourselves.
That's the one thing that during their announcement last week, they didn't really allude or say if they had a TV deal in place, and I think that's probably paramount if they want to be successful.
It sounds like that they're negotiating, and it sounds like I would be surprised if they didn't get a deal. It sounds like they've got different avenues they're going down, and they're not ready to announce anything yet. Remember, if they can get a TV deal, they can get an online deal, they can do do kind of pay-per-views and such, and what they can do with merchandising and such, because they think that's a big edge for them as well. Between a number of different revenue streams, I think they'll be able to compete. And again, you've got a company that has reportedly is going to put as much as $100 million into the company and such. You've got the cons, you've got financial backing. That's what I've read, and who knows, even if it's only half that amount, okay, well that's a lot to be able to give your company a good start. So I don't think that financing is going to be a problem for them.
KC Joyner on Twitter at KC Joyner TFS for that article, and check out ESPN.com. ESPN Senior NFL Football Insider since 2005. KC Joyner right here with us. He'll be back on Friday to get us ready for the 2 championship rounds. Thanks, pal.
Appreciate it.